You've been holding on for far too long to the past, to the pain, to a version of yourself that's no longer serving you. What if everything that's keeping you stuck isn't out there, but inside you? Today, we're going to destroy the blocks, break down the wall, and let go of the rope that's been strangling your progress. If you're ready to unleash what's been buried inside, this is your moment. Step 1, identify the mental blocks. You wake up with ambition, with the desire to change, to grow, to become more. But something keeps pulling you back. It's like there's a glass ceiling above your head. You can see the life you want. You can feel the energy of your potential. But no matter how hard you push, it feels like something invisible keeps resisting. That something is a mental block. And here's the truth. Most people walk through life completely unaware that it even exists. Mental blocks are not always loud and they're not always dramatic. In fact, the most dangerous ones are silent. They operate in the background of your mind like outdated software, dictating your behavior, shaping your thoughts, and quietly sabotaging your progress. These are the beliefs you adopted when you were young. Maybe someone told you that success is for other people, that you're not smart enough, or that money changes people. Maybe you failed once or a few times, and now there's a voice whispering, don't try again, you'll just mess it up. That voice has become your reality, and the more you listen, the more it hardens into fact. Before long, you're not even trying new things. You've justified your comfort zone as wisdom. You tell yourself you're being practical, safe, responsible, but really, you're avoiding. You're avoiding the very thing that would free you, risking belief in yourself. Mental blocks also form when you experience emotional pain, a breakup, a betrayal, a loss. You tell yourself a story to make sense of the hurt, but instead of healing, you build walls. You start believing things like, I can't trust people, or love is dangerous, or I'm better off alone. And every time life gives you an opportunity to grow, those beliefs pull you back into safety mode, into isolation, into hesitation. It's self-protection disguised as self-sabotage. And let's talk about perfectionism. That's one of the sneakiest mental blocks of all. You think it's about high standards, but it's not. It's about fear. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of judgment. So you delay, you plan, you research, you wait for the right moment that never comes, and all the while life is passing by. Mental blocks are also created through comparison. You scroll, you watch, you consume everyone else's highlight reel, and suddenly your progress feels like failure. You forget that their chapter 20 is being compared to your chapter 2. And in that forgetting, you start to shrink. You start to question yourself. You start to pull back from your own path. These blocks pile up over time. One by one, they stack until they become your identity. But they were never you. They're just habits of thought, patterns of fear, and emotional residues from the past that you never cleared out. And if you don't face them, challenge them, and consciously replace them, they'll continue to run your life on autopilot. Step 2, expose the wall you've built. There's a wall inside you built not of stone or steel, but of memories, emotions, and unresolved pain. And here's the hard truth. You built it. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because at some point it felt necessary. It was your defense, your way to survive. Something happened, maybe once, maybe over and over, and you made a silent decision, I won't let that happen again. So you began to close off bit by bit. You hardened. You learned how to appear strong. You smiled while hurting. You acted confident while doubting everything. And every time someone got too close, every time life asked you to open up, to take a risk, to feel deeply, you added another brick to that wall. And it didn't happen all at once. It happened over years. A harsh word from someone you looked up to, a betrayal that shook your trust, a failure that felt like proof you weren't enough. Each moment became a reason to protect yourself. And over time, that protection turned into isolation. Not necessarily physical isolation, but emotional, spiritual. You started showing the world only the parts of you that felt safe to reveal, the polished version, the controlled version, the acceptable version. And everything else, your vulnerability, your fear, your anger, your unmet needs, got locked away behind the wall. The wall keeps things out, but it also keeps you in. That's the part people don't realize. Yes, it shields you from potential hurt, but it also blocks joy, blocks intimacy, blocks possibility. You've convinced yourself that it's keeping you safe, when in reality it's cutting you off from your power, from your voice, from the raw, real magnetic energy that comes when you live unfiltered. You're trying to move forward in life while dragging a fortress around your heart. And the most dangerous thing about this wall is how invisible it can become. It blends in with your personality. You tell yourself things like, that's just how I am, or I'm just not an emotional person, or I've always been independent. But underneath that story is often a deep, unacknowledged fear, a fear of being seen and not being enough, of being hurt again, of being judged, misunderstood, or abandoned. You've probably even decorated the wall, made it look good from the outside. Success, achievements, relationships, they become ornaments on the surface of something that's fundamentally about hiding. You might be the person everyone comes to for advice, the one who seems put together, strong, unshakable. But deep down, you know there's a part of you that hasn't breathed in years, a part that's been buried under the weight of silence, of holding it all together, of pretending it doesn't hurt. And here's where it gets real. Every time you avoid difficult conversations, every time you hold back what you really want to say, every time you downplay your dreams, you're reinforcing that wall. You're saying it's not safe to be me, and yet your soul is screaming to break free. You feel it in the quiet moments, in the frustration, in the restless hunger that success can't satisfy. The wall doesn't just separate you from others, it separates you from yourself, from the deepest parts of your being, from your capacity to feel alive, to connect, to love, to lead with truth. Step 3, destroy it to rebuild. There comes a point where patching the cracks isn't enough. You've tried to fix things, tried to improve, to adjust, to tweak your habits, your mindset, your circumstances. But deep down, you know it's not working, because the issue isn't in what you're doing, it's in what everything is built on. The foundation is flawed. The structure was built during a time when you didn't know better, when survival was the goal, when fear dictated choices, when you were still operating from pain, from confusion, from other people's expectations. And now, you're trying to build a powerful, fulfilling life on top of that shaky foundation. It's like putting a skyscraper on sand. No matter how hard you work, it will always feel unstable. That's why surface level change doesn't last. You might feel a burst of motivation for a few days. You might even see some progress, but eventually the old patterns creep back in. Why? Because you never destroyed the original framework. You're still operating inside a belief system that was never yours to begin with. You're still playing by rules that were handed to you by broken people, by society, by old wounds. And if you want true, lasting transformation, you've got to stop trying to renovate what was never meant to stand. Destruction sounds violent, it sounds extreme, but in the context of personal evolution, it's sacred. It's intentional. It's the decision to no longer be loyal to limitations, to no longer decorate dysfunction and call it a personality. It's the moment you say, enough. Enough pretending, enough coping, enough trying to fit into a life that doesn't reflect who you are anymore. And there he has that kind of destruction. It can feel terrifying because it means tearing down the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. It means burning the false identity you've hidden behind for years. It means watching relationships shift, routines collapse, comfort zones dissolve. But it also means space. Space for something real. Space for something new. Think about nature. Forests burn, and in that burning, the soil becomes rich for new life. Old trees fall, and sunlight reaches where it never could before. In the same way, your internal fire, your willingness to dismantle what no longer serves, makes room for clarity, for strength, for expansion. You don't need to add more to become powerful. You need to release, to destroy the masks, the labels, the roles you've been clinging to because you thought they made you valuable. You were never meant to live small, But to step into your full power, you must clear out everything that was built from fear, shame, and scarcity. This isn't about chaos for the sake of it. This is about conscious demolition. It's looking at the patterns that keep playing on repeat and saying, no more. It's confronting the behaviors you justify but secretly hate. It's choosing to walk away from the environments that keep you numb. It's acknowledging that transformation isn't always clean or comfortable. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's raw, sometimes it means being willing to sit in the rubble and trust that on the other side of the collapse is a version of you that's freer, truer, and finally aligned. Step 4, break the addiction to pain. Most people would never say they're addicted to pain, but if you look closely at the choices you keep repeating, the cycles you stay trapped in, the emotions you feed daily, it becomes clear that pain has become a kind of comfort, not because it feels good, but because it feels familiar. Somewhere along the line, suffering started to feel like home. And once something feels like home, even if it hurts, we return to it again and again. We justify it, we normalize it, we even protect it. Pain can show up in many forms: emotional wounds, toxic relationships, negative self-talk, self-sabotage. And while it's easy to say, I want to heal, what's harder is to admit how attached you become to that pain. Because in some strange way, it gives you something. Maybe it gives you identity. Maybe it gives you an excuse. Maybe it gives you attention, a sense of importance, or a feeling of control. That's what makes it an addiction. There's a psychological payoff. You live in the story of what happened to you, the betrayal, the loss, the disappointment, not just because it hurt, but because it's become a part of who you think you are. You might say things like, this always happens to me, or I've just been through too much, or that's just how life is for me. And every time you repeat those phrases, you reinforce the emotional loop. You live in reaction to the past, you rehearse the trauma, you expect the struggle, and then you unconsciously recreate it through your decisions, your expectations, the people you allow into your life. That's not fate, that's the addiction playing out. Pain becomes a filter, it affects how you see the world. You walk into new situations expecting the same hurt, so you stay guarded, defensive, skeptical. You hold back your light, your love, your boldness, because some part of you is bracing for impact. And even when things go right, you feel you're waiting for the shoe to drop. That's the trap. You've conditioned yourself to associate peace with boredom and chaos, with aliveness. So when things finally calm down, when something good shows up, you almost can't trust it. You sabotage it. You create a problem just to feel something again. And pain doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your body. It becomes muscle memory, a nervous system on edge, always alert, always tense. And unless you break that cycle, unless you retrain your body and mind to feel safe and joy and love and peace, you'll keep going back to what you know. So that's why healing's not just about thinking different thoughts. It's about confronting the emotional addiction underneath those thoughts. The part of you that's become so used to the wound, it doesn't know who you'd be without it. There's a certain pride people take in their pain too, a sense of toughness, of resilience. You start to believe that your worth is connected to how much you've endured, that unless you're grinding, hurting, struggling, you're not growing. But growth doesn't require suffering. Growth requires truth. And the truth is, clinging to pain doesn't make you strong. Letting it go does. Releasing the need to constantly prove your worth through hardship is one of the most courageous acts you can commit to. Because when you stop feeding on pain, you're finally free to feed on purpose, love, joy, and expansion. Step 5, let go of the illusion of control. Control is one of the greatest illusions we cling to, and ironically, one of the greatest sources of our suffering. From the moment we experience our first loss, our first rejection, our first taste of chaos, we start building systems in our minds to prevent it from ever happening again. We organize, we plan, we predict, we build routines, expectations, and emotional armor, and at the center of it all is the unconscious belief: if I can just control everything, I'll be safe. But life doesn't work that way, it never has. You can control your schedule, but you can't control timing. You can control your effort, but not outcomes. You can control your words, but not how they're received. Still, we try, and that trying becomes obsession. We try to control how others see us, so we filter ourselves. We try to control the future, so we overthink, overanalyze, and stay frozen in fear. We try to control relationships, so we manipulate, we suppress, we overaccommodate, all in the name of keeping things together. But the truth is, what we're really trying to manage is uncertainty. And no matter how tightly we grip, uncertainty is part of the human experience. The rope of control feels like security, but it's actually a tether that keeps us small. It limits creativity, spontaneity, love, vulnerability, and the bold decisions that create real transformation. We say we want freedom, but we cling to control like it's oxygen. We say we want love, but we won't risk being seen in our rawness. We say we want purpose, but we won't take the leap unless we can guarantee the outcome. That's not freedom. That's a prison made of fear, disguised as logic. And it goes deeper. Control isn't just about the external, it's also how we try to manage our internal world. We suppress emotions. We avoid discomfort. We try to stay in the realm of what's acceptable, what's productive, what's rational. But the parts of us we suppress don't disappear, they grow louder in the dark. And the more we resist them, the more power they gain. Trying to control your emotional world is like trying to hold back a tidal wave with your hands. Eventually, it crashes through, and when it does, it doesn't care about your plans. Control is also seductive because it gives us the illusion of power, but real power comes from presence, from adaptability, from the ability to move with life, not just against it. When you release control, you don't become powerless, you become available. You become available to what wants to emerge through you, to the wisdom that only shows up when you're no longer micromanaging every detail of your life. You become aligned with something bigger than your ego, something deeper than your plans. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop grasping, you stop fighting the current and start trusting that you can swim. It means allowing life to surprise you, to teach you, to shape you in ways you could never design. You stop needing guarantees and start responding with courage. And in that space between surrender and action, you find a different kind of strength. One that doesn't come from forcing outcomes, but from flowing with what is. And trusting that whatever happens, you'll meet it. Not with resistance, but with resilience. Step 6, step into power with new beliefs. You've torn down the walls, let go of the rope. And now you're standing in unfamiliar territory, open, raw, and real. This is where the transformation begins. But to move forward, to truly rise, you need something more than motivation. You need a new internal compass. And that compass is made of belief, powerful, aligned, deliberate belief, not the kind you inherited from childhood wounds, societal conditioning, or past failures. It's not the belief shaped by fear or shame, but the kind that reflects who you really are. Beyond the pain, beyond the limits, beyond the noise. Beliefs are the foundation of identity. They are not just thoughts you think. They are the filters through which you interpret your entire life. They determine what you say yes to, what you walk away from, what you pursue, and what you convince yourself you can't have. You mean you're not worthy? Your mind will search for evidence to support that, and you'll sabotage opportunities that don't match that internal story. If you believe success is for other people, you'll downplay your gifts, delay your dreams, and stay small, even when doors swing open. You won't see them as doors, you'll see them as threats, because your identity is still chained to the past. To step into power, you must interrupt that programming. And interruption isn't enough. You have to install new beliefs with intention and consistency. Well, you have to create a new story that honors your strength, your worth, and your potential, not just when life is going well, but especially when it's not. Power isn't built in the absence of resistance, it's built in the decision to rise anyway. And that decision must be grounded in belief, a belief that you are capable, a belief that you are guided, a belief that you belong in the spaces you dream about, and more importantly, that you can hold the weight of what you're building. The new beliefs don't magically appear. They're chosen. They're repeated. They're carved into your nervous system through action. You begin to say, I am enough. And at first, it might feel like a lie. But the more you say it, the more you embody it, the more you act like someone who believes it, you start making different choices. You start walking into rooms with presence. You stop shrinking, apologizing, and explaining yourself. You stop tolerating what dishonors your energy. You begin setting standards that reflect your future, not your past. This isn't about fake positivity. T is about spiritual authority, about deciding who you are and refusing to let your past trauma or current environment tell you otherwise. Because when you change your beliefs, you don't just change your thoughts. You change your life. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop chasing approval and start owning your space. You stop begging for scraps and start building empires internally and externally. And you do it not from ego, but from alignment, because your new beliefs aren't based on needing to prove anything. They're based on knowing what's true. And that truth is this: you are not here to play small. You are here to live, lead, love, and expand as the most powerful version of yourself. And that version only activates when you believe it into being. Again and again and again. So here's the moment, the line in the sand. You've carried the weight long enough. The mental blocks, the invisible walls, the addiction to pain, the illusion of control. They've all served their purpose, but they don't belong in the life you're building now. This is your invitation to let it all go, to destroy what no longer serves and rebuild from truth, to replace survival with presence, fear with faith, control with trust. This is where you stop playing small and step into the life that's been waiting for you, not the one built by your past, but the one led by your power. You don't need permission. You don't need to be ready. You just need to decide right now that your future matters more than your fear. The wall is crumbling. The rope is slipping. And on the other side of it all is freedom. Choose it.